Marty Beckett, thank you so much for joining me on Finding Hope this morning. I'm so glad to finally be chatting face to face.
It's awesome, isn't it? It's good to see you.
Marty, first question I ask every guest that comes through.
Yep.
How would you introduce yourself to a stranger? Someone you just met?
Yep.
What would you say?
Yeah. I'd introduce myself as Marty. I don't necessarily put a title or anything on that. It's just, hi, I'm Marty. And for me, that wouldn't matter who it was, whether I'm sitting down with someone on the street that's homeless or whether it's a politician. It's like, hi, my name's Marty.
And what would you say encapsulates Marty?
Oh, wow. That's... It's a compilation of, I guess, all of my journey from a young boy, growing up through my teens, where, like every kid, you go through that sort of crisis and life changes and life moves and things don't work out the way you thought they were going to work out. We went through a family breakup when I was quite young with my mum and dad at about 16, 17. So, and then today, and I think for me it's been a real essence of just not taking myself too seriously, because I felt much of life can get so overwhelming and serious. And it wasn't until a friend called me Marty. Someone just said, "Hey, Marty," and I thought, I've never been called Marty before. Mum and Dad always call me Martin. My brothers and sisters call me Martin. Everyone call me Martin. And so to hear Marty, I went, gee, that sounds light and fun. And so I just sort of took it on, and yeah. So I think it's not taking yourself too seriously and having some fun. That's what Marty means to me, I think.
Would you say your childhood encapsulated that sense of fun and joy? It was a bit more serious. How was the situation?
I come from a family of 7, so I'm the middle child.
Literally the middle.
I break the whole thing up,
Okay.
So there's the good, the I don't know, it won't work out for me if I say that, so I better be careful. The good, the bad, the ugly. But I'm right in the middle, and so I think for me, childhood was good. I can't complain. Like I grew up in a Christian home, and Dad and Mum were involved in the church, and I had brothers and sisters who, like any brothers and sisters, we fought and we bickered and we did everything. But there were 7 of us, and so it was always something going on. So it was a good life, but there were a lot of serious, moments throughout that could have, and I've seen it with other brothers and sisters, could have turned you in a different direction to where I found myself heading. And so I think for me, it was just about really letting go of any disappointments, brokenness, because we focus on those more than we do the good things, right? And so I can remember the good things, and so I choose to make those the focus. And yeah, so I think that my childhood, it was fun, but it had really serious moments and real dire moments that happened that, I won't go into it here, but if I talk to some people about, my childhood, and they go, wow, that would make such an amazing and horrific movie. And it would, because there were some really terrible things that were going on in the background that as a kid I was oblivious to, that were just, real sort of Days of Our Lives drama sort of moments that just could have affected me. But I just went, no, you know what? I'm going to let those things shape me into something better rather than becoming bitter about it. One of those is, I guess, faithfulness, like seeing through my childhood unfaithfulness, and then learning that that's been something systemically through my family. I think for me it was like, so I'm going to be faithful to my wife. So for 30 odd years I've been faithful to my wife, and I teach my kids, be faithful not just to your wives or your partners, but in your job, in the way you conduct yourself. Be faithful, because it wasn't actually something I saw demonstrated growing up.
How was that the church growing up, and how different it is to the one you pastor now?
Yeah, very strict.
Yeah.
Very strict, very legalistic. Grew up in a group called the New Testament Church of God, which was an American take on the AOG. It was an American version of the AOG. And it was very performance orientated. And so that was very hard. I think kids, when we come home, we want to see Mum and Dad as real and authentic. And when we see performances, which I think church became very performance, when we come home, it's like, well, you're not doing what you said in church, or you're not acting, or you're not conducting yourself. And we can become very cynical. And I think that's often why a lot of kids actually fall away from the church, is we have this thing where they get to about 17, 18 and they fall away from the church. And I think often, not all the time, but it's that they're not seeing that consistency from their home life. And so, I think that today, the church back then was very performance, felt very fake to me, to what we try and portray today, which is a very real, we're human beings, we stuff up, we make mistakes, but ultimately, I want to be real. Yeah.
Tell me about Christ Mission Impossible. You're now the CEO. Firstly, how did that organisation come about? But also an overview of the incredible services you provide across Penrith and Western Sydney. Yeah,
so Christ Mission Possible came about through a couple that we'd met, Abraham and Alison Ackery, who'd started up this little. They wanted to serve their community. They really felt it was on their heart, and so they started Christ Mission Possible. The actual name and everything, they came up with a lot, and they were serving out of their kitchen, out of a little kitchen they built beside their home in Mount Druitt, and they were feeding in 4 different regions of Mount Druitt every week, and they were feeding about 100 people.
That's huge.
It was huge for a couple. And so our church had began to volunteer with them, begin to support them. They became key members of our church. And over the years, Christ Mission Possible just sort of meshed into the Rock Community Centre almost as one. We just sort of became, you couldn't remove us from each other. And so when they moved on, he went to Papua New Guinea, Abraham. I took over the charity. And at the time, as I said, about 100 people were being fed. We started duplicating that service. We thought there's a way we can do more of it. And so we did. And we got other churches which jumped on board with us. And so we're up in the Blue Mountains. We're out at Layla Park, Blacktown. We're all over the place. And so we just do that through duplication, partnering with other churches, community groups. And what we saw from that was we went from 100 to tens of thousands of people a week getting food. We do a school program called Brown Paper Bag, which we spoke about before on your show, where it's 2,500 lunches go out every week that are made and sent to the schools. There's free food hampers every day. Our people walking into our building to get a free food hamper. We then saw the need for homelessness and went, well, we don't want to give someone food on the street and send them back to the street. What can we provide? And at the time, there was nothing in the western suburbs. Housing New South Wales, who we partner with, we had a chat to them, we're sharing them our vision. They said, we love it. They took us on board. And for about now, I think it's about 15 years, we've been working with them to actually take people off the street, put them into a lovely accommodation, and then actually help them into their own home. So for me, that's been phenomenal. Partnering with and collaborating with groups, I love doing that, especially when their heart's in the right place.
Homelessness, it's unfortunately a growing challenge across this city.
Yeah.
What are some misconceptions that people may have about homelessness in general?
Yeah, thinking that that homelessness is just sort of that old guy walking down the street, sleeping on the park bench, pushing a trolley, he's dirty, grubby, whatever it is, and that somehow he's just an alcoholic and that's what he's deserves, It can be much further from the truth. Probably a large percentage of our people that come through, the larger percentage, would be men, but we've got a huge group of families that come through, mums and dads, so husband and wives, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids that are sleeping rough on the street, sleeping in their car, kids getting ready in the local public toilets to go to school that day. And it's just crazy, sleeping on garage floors of a friend, whatever it might be. We find that's more and more. So I think the misconception is that homelessness is just for that particular demographic, that person who's an alcoholic or a person who's doing drugs. It's not. It can be anybody. So the misconception is that it wouldn't happen to me, and yet it can. And I think in the economic situation we're in today, I think more and more people are becoming aware of the fragility of their lives. If there's just one more interest rate, I'll lose my home. If there's just, and people are so scared, living in fear. We've come out of COVID, which was, it was almost like a systematic campaign of fear, which implemented fear in our people. And then they come out of that to this economic crisis. It's like people haven't had a chance to come out from, under the water of it all and breathe. And so we find there's this real anxiety and fear about future. And so I think, I think it's a scary time for people, and more people that have never ever experienced poverty are experiencing poverty. And it's for us, we love being there because we have such a different approach to that, I feel. And so we bring hope and we bring some joy and we bring some love. And many of the people, as I said, are restored back to where they can get back on with life again. But it's scary, and I think that people definitely need it. It's funny, your station's called Hope, and I'm saying hope a lot, but that's what they need is hope. Yeah.
We're coming into Christmas as well. Such a stressful time for so many people, but especially those who are experiencing homelessness or have struggles at home. What would you say some of those unique struggles are surrounding this festive period in general?
Well, again, I think we want to provide for our children. We want to provide for our married partner or whoever that is. We want to provide for our family. And I think the biggest fear is that not having that disposable income to make Christmas that little bit special. There's no holiday maybe that people will be able to have. They won't be able to go away. They won't even be able to, some of them put food on the table. And so I think that's a real fear for people. And it's justified because we live in a society which puts so much emphasis on that, you know. And people just they want to spoil their kids, spoil their wife, spoil their husband. They want to do that, but they're not going to be able to because the money's just not there. So that's a scary time for people. And we find a lot of people like that. So for us, it's, we're not doing hampers this year purely because we just felt we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, which is giving out food. So rather than specialising on just one hamper, because a lot of groups, they'll get to Christmas time, they put on a Christmas lunch, they put on a hamper. Every day of the week, we have hundreds of people getting hampers from us. So we just decided we're just going to keep that going. And right up till Christmas Eve, we'll just keep giving out food. And we'll just keep trying to supply that need in a realistic way. And we often find that if, say, toys or presents that we get when they come through, they also end up in the right homes.
Yeah.
So I think that's what people are facing, is just that fear of not being able to provide a joyful Christmas, to get up a Christmas morning and open up a present, to get up Christmas morning and put food in the oven and cook it. I think a lot of people are living with fear on that one. And you hear people just saying, oh, we're not going to do anything this year. We're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to spend time. We're just staying home. And you think, oh, it's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How has the meaning of Christmas for you changed over the years doing this work?
Yeah. I think Christmas and every day for me has changed in the time I've been doing this. It makes you more aware of what you do, doing this kind of work. So you kind of, in a healthy way, you question everything you do as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you might go, I want to go do this. I want to go on a holiday. I want to go away for a weekend. And you do start to ask yourself, do I need this? Am I just fulfilling a desire in me that is material? And so I think so. That's where I'm at. I used to love getting the new iPhones, like when they first came out. I can't remember what year it was that the first iPhone came out, but I had a little HP type thing and used to have to scribble on it with a little pen. And, and I remember the iPhone came out. And I brought probably the second one of the new iPhones that came out. And I loved it. I thought, oh, this is the best thing. And so every year, whenever a new one came out, which it felt like then it was every 2 or 3 years, now it's like every 6 months. It was like we're at the iPhone. I don't know what we're at now, right? But it was like I had to get the latest one. And I think about probably 10 years ago, all of that just, what are we doing? It's like we're just driven to get the latest, the newest. It's bombarding us, and yet people are trying to just put food on the table. I used to drive around in the early days around Penrith. I'd be laying in bed at 1 o'clock at night and I couldn't sleep. And it's not, I don't recommend this. This is not healthy. But I'd be laying there thinking of Margaret, a woman we just fed that night, who's going to sleep in an old car yard. And so I would drive around at night to make sure Margaret was okay. And I would drive down the streets of Penrith looking for the homeless. And because I just thought, what business have I got? I'm in a nice, warm, comfy bed. And it challenges you to think of others. And we're just not built that way anymore. Protect what you've got, protect your family, protect your life. I think it definitely changed me, and you've got to think of others a lot more.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. On the flip side is you're a full-time pastor.
Yeah.
You have a church. You're the CEO of this incredible organisation, but it's a lot of work. What fills your cup back up? How do you make time for you?
Yeah, family are that. Just the simple things, having the kids over for a meal, just sitting down having for me, I've got a boy and a girl, and when I say boy and a girl, it sounds like they're 5, doesn't it? They were once. Well, my daughter's 26 and my boy's 30. So you could be my daughter. So my daughter's 26, and she's got married recently. They're having a little bubs. So those kind of things really fill me up. My boy's about to get. He's with a lovely lady, and they're looking at moving on to the next chapter of their life. Right. So all that really excites me, and that gets me. It used to be things, and they call it. I used to say to people, again on that joy thing, I learnt that joy. Well, Romans 14:17 says the kingdom of heaven isn't eating and drinking, but it's righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Ghost. And I'd say to people that's the only 3-step process that I can find in Scripture that I can actually find as a 3-step. And I'm not into steps, but that's the only one. Righteousness, right thinking, right action, right doing leads to peace. Now, that's not always the most popular, but it's right, and it leads to peace. And peace leads to joy. And I used to say to people, I used to be wanting to be happy, but happiness is built in happenings. So things have to happen for me to be happy. I go to a comedy show, he does something, says something, I'm happy for a moment. I get a present, I pay my bills, whatever, I'm happy. But joy says, even when that stuff doesn't happen, I'm content. And so I think I found joy in just the simple things. We're in probably, at the moment, like everyone else, we've had the last couple of years have been really tough. It's been tough because we watched people suffer, but also we watched, it's been hard you're maintaining a charity, which we spend about $3 million a year to provide our service. We have government relationships, but we're not government funded. And so we've got to find that money every year. And like everybody else, like Hope, and we've got to pay the bills, right? And so I would say the last year or two, like everybody else, we've been going through the financial side of it and going, how do we make ends meet? And so you can totally relate to what people are going through when you're in that yourself, oh, well, I can't pay the electricity bill, Pastor. You go, we're having trouble doing that as well, So you can relate. But in that, what you're not doing is you're not coming at it from a place of despair because you've got joy. And so what you do is you go, it will be okay. God's got this. And so then you see God do something. And you see God do something for someone else that you're praying for. Even though your electricity bill hasn't been paid, you see something happen for them. And I think that's what joy does. Joy just allows you not to live in that moment, but to step outside of that moment and go, this is not going to define me. And so,
How can listeners of this podcast, this station, support Christ Mission Possible?
Look, in the past, and I would often say it can be through volunteering and through gifts in kind. But I would say in this climate, it would be financially that Christ Mission would be most assisted. Mm-hmm. And as I said, we spend significant funds that we have to find every year. So we're looking at raising a couple of $100,000 if we can over this next half in order to get through this financial year and to be able to continue not only just providing what we do, but to grow. We've got Brown Paper Bag, which you and I spoke about, which, can I say, from that we had a number of people ring up and we did. Oh, so I didn't tell you that, did I? So no. I saved that for today. I know your listeners are out there, I know they're there, and I know they care. We're in their communities, so what we say to people is we're doing the yards, we're doing the hands and the feet type stuff. And you don't have to do that. People have got to work their jobs, they've got to take care of their families, but you can help, and it can be whatever it is financially. You can go to our website, which is www.cmp.org.au, or you can give us a call directly, 1300 help to you.
Marty, last question. How has being involved in CMP changed who you are?
Yeah, a lot. When I first got involved with CMP, I was pastoring the church. And it was a church that was growing. It sort of went from, when I took it over, a church of about 30, 40 people. And then we'd sort of grown very quickly and exponentially, but I was still working a full-time job. And because I'd always had in my heart, because of probably what I saw as an erroneous model, that I didn't want to be beholden to the church for my income. And I guess a bit like Paul's a tent maker, and I think Paul's stand was that, I felt anyway, I don't know if this is right, but when I read scripture, Paul says that he provides his own income, so he's not bound by what he can say because he might offend you and you stop tithing or you sack him as the pastor, right? And so I took that stand for many years. And when God called me out of my job and said, Marty, leave your job, I said, and do what? And he said, just trust me. And at that time, we'd started with Christ Mission Possible, and I'd become a board member with them. We was just starting out with looking into the housing programs we were going to do. We had about $600 in the bank of the charity. We didn't have a lot of money. We had these multi-million-dollar dreams, but no money. And the church didn't have significant funds. And so I left my job, as every sensible person does. And I left my job and we started Christ Mission Possible. And what I found was immediately my faith level went up. Wow. And so what I find Christ Mission Possible and what this journey we've gone on has done for me is it's given me such a renewed faith in God. And for 18 months, I didn't draw an income from anyone. Christ Mission Possible, I had no money. I had a mortgage. I had 2 cars. I had 2 children who all need pointless things, and so for 18 months, I would go down to the local Centrelink and I'd stand in line to hand in my dole form. And I'd be there with people that I was serving on the streets. They say, Pastor Marty, what are you doing here? And I said, handing in my dole form. And I'd have to hand in my dole form because I was unemployed. And I put my dole form in. What God did for that whole 18 months was I only got 2 Centrelink payments into my bank account, because each week I would get some kind of gift in my hand, money would come through, God would provide something. 11th hour, I'd get money in my account. I don't know where it came from. I'd have to declare it. And so I'd declare it, and that would make me void of any payment. And so what I found was my faith level went up, but my need for things diminished. Yeah? Because we get so caught up in that. And we're taught and we're told, if you think about it, you go home tonight, there'll be a telly ad on. There'll be a couple there sitting on a lounge and they'll say, what are we going to do if we lose our job? Oh, we won't be able to last more than a month. And there's all this fear. So go get insurances, which is not a problem. I'm not talking you out of insurances. But there's all this fear. What happens when we retire? What happens if I die? And all this fear that people have. And what I realised was Jehovah Jireh is my provider. And so I'm so focused on what Marty can do and what Marty could do. And all my working life, I was so fixated on making money, that I forgot that he's actually my provider. And so Christ Mission Possible for me, it's in the name, Christ Mission Possible. When it feels impossible, Christ can make it possible. And I think Mark 10:27, where it says that all things with God are possible. With men they're impossible, but with God they're possible. And I've seen that over and over again. And if there's an old saying that if it's his will, he'll pay the bill, right? And so for me, it's like, if he's got us on a mission, he's going to make it possible. Just got to make sure we're on his mission, not on our mission. We've got to be on his mission. God bless me. He's going, no, just get where I am and you'll be blessed. And so for Christ Mission Possible, I feel that I'm where I need to be in my life. That's where God's built me for and put me. And I just really feel it's a real beacon of hope for people in our community, whether they're needing Christ Mission or they're just watching and observing. It's a real beacon of hope.
Well, Marty Beckett, it has been such a pleasure having this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Good to see you face to face.
I know, finally. Just love the work that you do. So thank you so much.
It's wonderful. Thank you.